Imagine you're standing at the crossroads of Wall Street on a September morning in 2026. The New York sky is still blue, an almost deceptive blue, but down between the concrete and steel canyons, the air is thick with a silence that feels unnatural. There is no screaming, no brokers hurling telephones in panic like the black and white footage of 1929. The collapse of the modern financial era doesn't begin with a loud explosion. It begins with a sigh. On cold, glowing Bloomberg screens inside the glass towers, red numbers start to flicker. It doesn't fall straight down. It bleeds slowly, like the heartbeat of a terminal cancer patient fading after a long, brutal illness. Outside, people still rush by with Starbucks cups in hand. They still scroll TikTok. They still argue about entertainment celebrities completely unaware that beneath their feet, the tectonic plates of the global economy are cracking with deadly muffled snaps. The financial world whispers a curse to itself, the Great Depression of 2026, a devastating script where cash is king while every other asset, everything from glamorous penthouses overlooking Central Park to once worshipped tech stocks, turns to dust. Top economists who usually appear on television with optimistic smiles now whisper in closed-door meetings that 2026 could be more brutal than 1929 and the 2008 financial tsunami combined. Why? Because this time the monster doesn't just attack wallets. It attacks trust, the final currency that keeps human society from collapsing into chaos. Welcome to Inner Shadow, the place where you'll hear truths society doesn't want you to know. The ghost of the yield curve. In the upper tiers of finance, there are prophets who never lie tragically. They're often ignored by a blood-drunk crowd. The most terrifying, the coldest of them all, is the inverted yield curve. Picture the mechanism. It's as simple as breathing. In a normal, healthy world, if you lend money to the government for 10 years, meaning you buy a long-term bond, you should receive a higher interest rate than if you lend for only 2 years. That's the reward for patience and time risk. But when the curve inverts, when short-term rates spike above long-term rates, that is the moment smart money is screaming in panic. The future is too risky. I don't care about tomorrow. I want cash now. For the past 70 years, this indicator has never been wrong. Every time the curve inverts and then returns to normal, a brutal recession follows 3 to 12 months later, like a death clock counting down with perfect precision. And at the end of 2025, that clock rang its final bell. The yield curve turned positive again. Politicians and US officials tried to calm the public with pretty phrases like soft landing. But mathematics doesn't do propaganda. The numbers are counting down to H-hour. The basement's cry for help before the fire reaches the ivory towers. It always starts in society's damp basement. The clearest sign of the coming 2026 storm isn't in Apple or Microsoft's dreamlike financial reports. It's in the rusted used car lots on the outskirts of America. 2 subprime lenders specializing in US auto loans quietly declared bankruptcy in mid-2025. This is not a small story. This is the canary in the coal mine. When working-class people, those living on credit cards and installment loans, can no longer afford a car, their only tool to earn a living, it means the foundation of consumption is rotting from the inside. In that context, Buffett quietly pumped $125 billion into the market through complex technical instruments to rescue liquidity for the banking system. This hidden move brought back chilling memories of the dark days of 2008 before Lehman Brothers collapsed. They call it a technical adjustment, but insiders call it what it is: emergency life support. The economic patient has stopped breathing, and the doctors are desperately trying to restart the heart while hiding the true condition from the public. The silence of the sharks and Warren Buffett's fortress. While the retail crowd, new F0 investors, remain intoxicated by dreams of quick wealth from AI crypto and green and purple candlesticks, the true giants of the financial ocean have begun to move. And their move is only one thing: retreat to the fortress. Warren Buffett, the sage of Omaha, didn't become a legend by guessing daily market colors. He became a legend by smelling blood from thousands of miles away. Throughout 2024 and 2025, Berkshire Hathaway did something that many naive players mocked. It sold ruthlessly. He sold hundreds of millions of Apple shares, his beloved profit machine. He cut exposure to major banks, and as a result, he accumulated an enormous pile of cash and US Treasury bills, $325 billion, an unprecedented figure in Berkshire's history. Why would a great investor hoard cash, the trash asset, during inflation? The answer is simple and cold. He isn't afraid inflation will erode cash. He's afraid asset valuations will collapse faster than money loses value. He is like an old crocodile lying still by the riverbank, eyes half closed, indifferent to the young antelopes dancing at the water's edge. He knows that when the tide pulls back, when panic blankets the world, he will be the only one with ammunition cash ready to buy the world at bargain prices. He isn't waiting for a recession. He is waiting for a total crash. BlackRock and the Aladdin machine. The gods begin to move. If Buffett is a crocodile of nature, BlackRock is a mechanical monster of the digital age. Larry and BlackRock's supercomputer system. Aladdin manage capital flows larger than the GDP of every nation on Earth, except the United States and China. BlackRock's recent moves are no longer attacks on paper financial assets. They are a mass migration into real assets. They are buying energy infrastructure companies. They are buying entire rental neighborhoods. They are quietly shifting portfolios from paper printed with stock symbols to land concrete steel. They understand that in the 2026 game, the winner won't be the one who owns the most paper money. The winner will be the one who holds what cannot be printed. And when sharks retreat, they leave behind a massive liquidity vacuum. When they leave, who will buy your overpriced stocks when the market collapses? No one. You will be left alone on the sinking ship. The perfect storm. 3 death bubbles converge. Unlike 1929, a stock bubble, or 2008, a housing bubble, 2026 is a rare astronomical event in the financial universe. A terrifying convergence of 3 forces at once. Bubble 1. The stock market giants with clay feet. The S&P 500 sits at historic highs, but it's a lonely, precarious peak. The market is lifted almost entirely by 7 tech titans. America's economic faith is concentrated into a single vision: AI profits. But valuations, PE ratios, have surged far beyond reality, crossing even the dot-com bubble threshold of 2000. The market is pricing companies as if recession will never exist, like trees will grow forever into the sky. All it takes is one weak earnings report, one stumble from NVDA or Microsoft, one legal scandal around AI, and the domino effect ignites. When the pillar breaks, the roof collapses. No diversification will save your portfolio when everything is overpriced. Bubble 2. Commercial real estate. A bomb under the cities. Look at the office towers in San Francisco, Chicago, New York. Outside they still glitter. Inside they are emptiness, concrete tombs, burying hundreds of billions of dollars. Here is the deadly trap. Developers borrowed money to buy buildings when rates were 2 to 3%. Now those loans are maturing. Commercial loans are often only about 5 years, and refinancing will be at 7 to 9%. At the same time, rental income collapses due to remote work. Interest costs triple, revenue halves. There is no solution. The result is cascading default. Hundreds of US regional banks are holding this bad debt like a grenade with the pin pulled. When building owners throw the keys back at the banks, the US mid-tier banking system collapses like dominoes. Bubble 3. US government bonds. The safe haven is on fire. The most terrifying thing about 2026 is that there may be no safe place left. In the past, when stocks fell, money ran to US treasuries considered risk-free. But now, US national debt has surpassed $36 trillion and is racing toward $40 trillion. Every 100 days, America borrows another $1 trillion not to invest, but just to pay interest on old debt. Foreign holders, China, Japan, Saudi Arabia, quietly dump treasuries. Supply overwhelms, demand prices plunge. Pension funds, ordinary retirees who trusted bonds as the safest nest egg, suddenly watch their wealth evaporate before their eyes. Historical comparison. To understand the brutality, let's place 2026 on the scale of history. 1929, the Great Depression hit the stomach. People starved, lined up for free soup. But only about 10% of Americans owned stocks. Pain concentrated first among elites, then spread through unemployment. Agriculture still provided a floor. 2008. The financial crisis hit the home. People lost houses, banks lost liquidity, but the government still had room to print money and bail out the system. 2026, a total reset. This crisis hits the future itself. Today, around 60% of Americans have money in financial markets through retirement funds. A crash this time doesn't just make the rich cry, it wipes out the retirement savings of a retired teacher in Ohio, wipes out college funds of children in Texas, and erases the sense of security of the entire middle class. It doesn't go around anymore. It hits every household directly. Consumer confidence. The engine that drives roughly 70% of US GDP could shut off overnight. And when Americans stop spending, factories in China, Vietnam, and Germany also stop. This becomes a global collapse. The firefighters are tied up the Fed's trap. In Hollywood, disaster films, there's always a dramatic moment when the president asks, "What weapons do we have left?" And the general lowers his head, "Sir, we've used all our ammo." That is exactly the Federal Reserve and US government's situation in 2026. In past crises, they had two holy weapons: cut interest rates to 0% to stimulate borrowing, print money without restraint to flood the market with liquidity. But this time they face a hybrid monster never seen before: stagflation. A recession needs money printing, but stubborn inflation demands tightening. If they cut rates and print money to save stocks, and real estate inflation could explode to 10 to 15%. Bread and gasoline prices would skyrocket, crushing the poor and igniting social riots and street looting. The US dollar would lose value, threatening its global reserve status. If they keep rates high to kill inflation, the economy freezes. Businesses fail in waves. Unemployment rises into double digits. They are trapped in the middle. The federal budget is deeply in deficit, unable to launch multi-trillion-dollar stimulus packages like during COVID-19. The market's invisible hand will punish past excess with a painful cleansing. This time, the US government is not the world's savior. It is also a gigantic debtor being chased by creditors. Collapse mechanism, digital domino effect. Modern financial markets are no longer men in suits shouting orders. They are like a tangled electrical grid, submerged in a massive gasoline tank. Everything is connected. The 2026 collapse will unfold at the speed of light, faster than 1929 or 2008 because of technology. High-frequency algorithmic trading, passive ETFs, highly leveraged derivatives, cold automatic systems. Picture the horror scenario in the first 24 hours. 9:30 a.m. A major fund or mid-sized bank announces a liquidity crisis due to commercial real estate defaults. 10:00 a.m. AI risk detection algorithms automatically trigger broad market sell-offs to cut losses. No emotion, no hesitation. 11:00 a.m. As prices fall too quickly, margin calls detonate across the system. Leveraged investors are forced to sell anything liquid, even gold, Bitcoin, high-quality stocks to meet broker demands. 12:00 p.m. ETFs, holding trillions in public money, must sell baskets of stocks to meet massive redemptions. 1:00 p.m. Liquidity evaporates. Sellers are everywhere, buyers are nowhere. Prices free fall with no floor. This is when the truth, cash is king, becomes clearest. Cash becomes king, not because it earns returns, but because it is the only asset that doesn't need a counterparty to exist. In panic, people stop caring about return on capital. They beg only for one thing: return of capital. Dawn or dusk of a new era. No one knows the exact moment the bomb will explode. It could be a drizzly September morning or a blood-red October sunset in 2026. But the economic sky has already turned grey, and the winds carrying the smell of death are beginning to whistle through Wall Street's windows. If the 2026 crisis follows the worst-case script, it won't be a normal cyclical recession like we've known. It will look like a great reset, a re-establishment of global financial order. It will ruthlessly erase zombie companies that survived only on cheap money for the past decade. It will punish greedy investors who used extreme leverage. It will execute the greatest wealth redistribution in history. Capital will flow away from those holding paper stocks, bonds, weak fiat currency, into the hands of those holding real value, real assets, real production capacity, core economic power. For those who stayed awake and prepared carefully, this is a once-in-a-century opportunity to buy the world's most valuable assets at bargain prices, exactly as Warren Buffett is patiently waiting to do. But for the sleeping majority drunk on victory, this will be a brutal lesson, a freezing bucket of reality about supply, demand, and the true value of money. History never repeats word for word, but it always rhymes terrifyingly, and the music coming from the horizon of 2026 sounds like a requiem for the era of cheap money. When the tide goes out, we see who was swimming naked, and it seems the entire ocean is preparing to drain to the last drop. The only question is, have you already prepared your own life preserver?